I've been watching David Icke's latest marathon presentation called The Lion Sleeps No More. And I kind of had a moment of clarity about the whole thing, about David Icke. And it got me thinking about cults. Now, if you had asked me about a year ago whether I considered David Icke to be a cult, whether I considered him to be dangerous in the way that a cult is dangerous, I would have balked at the idea, but I'm very much coming round to that very notion. And here's what made me think of this. You know, I was watching it, and I was watching him talk about the nature of reality and stuff, and a lot of it made sense. But then he moved on to the reptilians and Satanism and stuff, and I was just shaking my head. And then at the end of the section, the audience are, massive round of applause while David Icke walks off. And they're all buying this stuff, even though it's littered with, character assassination and things that he claims are true that he's got absolutely no way to prove. I mean, there was a very telling moment when he brought up the mention of a document called Confessions of a Satanist, and he actually says in the presentation that he can't verify that this is authentic, but it doesn't stop him talking about it for the next 10 or 15 minutes as if it's authentic. And, targeting a minority group, people who call themselves Satanists. So I'm kind of thinking, here's this misinformation going out, and here's this massive group of maybe 2,000 people taking it all in and applauding and walking out feeling very enlightened. And it kind of made me think about how cults have operated in the past, in the pre-internet era. And I was remembering the likes of David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, those guys from Waco, Texas, who were raided by the FBI, and they had their own compound. And we tend to think of a cult as some kind of actual grouping of people in the real world where they're all together. But I think the internet means we have to completely redefine what a cult actually is. Because the internet gives you the power to pull people together from here, there, and everywhere. And you never quite see them together, except when events like David Icke's things happen, where you suddenly see that they are actually a group, and that he's got them together, and he's talking at them like an evangelical preacher almost. There's a lot of fire in what he says, and they're just taking it all in. And in a sense, he's actually militarizing these people, even though he's not preaching, hate or anything like that. His message is human race, get off your knees. And his latest book is The Lion Sleeps No More, and the lion is the human race. So it's like, come on, let's go. We got to do something. We're not going to take this tyranny. And he always talks about peaceful protesting and everything, but he's kind of still militarizing people. And I got a real taste of this myself when one of my videos about David Icke was posted on the David Icke forum. It was a video called David Icke's New Satanic Panic. And the grief I got as a result of that being posted, where there was just this fanatical devotion to the man. And even though I prefaced my video by saying I really hate to do this, and David Icke is the man that really helped me to free myself from religion a couple of years ago, even though I said all that, and even though I wasn't really dissing the guy, I was just saying, look, here's what he says and he can't back it up, etc. It didn't matter what I said. These people had this fanatical devotion, and they just would not hear a bad word said about their Messiah, for want of a better word. And I'm sure they wouldn't, like me to use that term, but he's up there as the guy that's out to wake everybody up, to save everybody. And he commands that sort of fanatical devotion, even though he preaches, think for yourself. I mean, I'm one of the rare people who actually took his advice, and it ended up with me not being able to appreciate his stuff anymore. So kind of a paradox there, but I honestly think there's a lot of people that when they're freed from religion, they're just really looking for another guru or another messiah or another package deal belief system that's going to save them or enlighten them or make them different from everybody. And I think this is what David Icke taps into. He's not the only one doing this, of course. I mean, I think I could probably accuse the likes of Eckhart Tolle of the same thing. And I'm also reminded of Zeitgeist. I've watched all 3 movies, and there are elements of truth in there, but I think there's also a great deal of misinformation. And there's a thing called the Zeitgeist movement that these videos encourage you to join. And again, here we have this kind of cult mentality brewing, getting people together from here, there, and everywhere to buy into an ideology and to become mobilized. That's that word movement is a scary word to me. The Zeitgeist movement. And essentially what's going on here is you have a few charismatic people who are essentially giving people a fantasy and getting them mobilized in the real world. Because the internet, it's really just virtual reality, isn't it? I mean, anybody can come onto the internet, set up a false persona, an alias under a username. Very few people use their real names on their YouTube usernames or anything like that. So, you can come online and you don't have to be yourself. You can be anyone, and you can give people grief. And you're insulated from anything that comes back to you because you're safely hidden behind your computer and behind your alias. And if you make yourself look like a laughingstock, all you've got to do is delete your username and create another. So there's very few people actually using their real identities and their real personalities online. Because that's a risky thing to do, isn't it? But even though the internet is virtual reality, it still has this power to get people into groups and to get them mobilized. I mean, even look at the thing that recently happened to me with YouTube user PND51010, who calls himself the Anti-Reptilian League, even though he can't spell the word reptilian, right? That's a real joke there. But he calls himself the Anti-Reptilian League, and he says, I'm a shape-shifting reptilian. So he's this little group here, and at the minute he's got about 100 subscribers. And I guess most of them are people like him, who have the same sort of belief system. So I don't think there's any harm going to come to me. I mean, this is too small. But if that was bigger, that would be like a witch hunt towards me and people like me. I'm human, by the way. That's not an admission that I'm a reptile. You know what I mean? So I can laugh off stuff like that. But David Icke, filling halls of thousands of people, I don't know, it seems pretty dangerous. Especially when he's going around saying stuff that is really, really far out. That, leaders of the world are shape-shifting reptilians, and the moon is a hollowed out planetoid. It's not really a natural body, and it's projecting a false reality to the Earth. So we're all living in some kind of dream state caused by artificial reality projections from the moon. I can go so far with David Icke and no further, because I think he has a fairly decent spirituality that makes a lot of sense to me. But it's certainly not a spirituality that's unique to him. I could find this as far back as the Greek philosophers, and I can even find it in Eastern mysticism. So it's not his, he's just the guy that I heard it from first. But all this conspiracy stuff, I can't go there. So what point am I trying to make with this video? Just trying to raise awareness of this, raise awareness of the power of the internet in the creation of the modern cult, I suppose you would call it. I think gone are the days where people get together in a local area and seal themselves off from society. Now it's all people behind their computer screens. It's the virtual cult, if you like, but it's capable of having a real world effect, and that's the danger with it.